Briefcase Crimes contains graphic depictions of violent acts, bad jokes, and loud dog noises. It's not intended for all audiences, and listener discretion is advised. Welcome, listeners, to Briefcase Crimes. I'm Hannah, and I'm full of terrifying facts about horrific events.
I'm Liz, and I'm full of morbid curiosity.
Elizabeth.
Hannah.
It is a crazy day.
Yep. Sure is.
You and I both are running on zero sleep.
Yep.
Literally, neither one of us got a wink of sleep last night.
Nope. I started to doze, and then Scott, jolted awake, and that was it. It was all over.
I hate that, especially because, why is it that,
the men can sleep?
Well, no. Why is it that the men, they sleep, and then just, in the middle of the night, you'll just be lying there, and they'll just go, what is that? What is
my
that?
God.
Or
Yeah.
they'll jerk. They'll just be laying there and then they'll just be like, yeah. They don't make a noise. They just
I do that sometimes.
I do too, but it doesn't bother me.
I told Scott the other day, I was like, I don't know what you were doing in your sleep, but you just cried out. You were just like,
One time, so my dad and I both have sleep disturbances in that we grind our teeth, we talk, we both talk and make noise in our sleep. One time he was asleep and he just went, all of a sudden he just goes, did this teeny tiny back of the throat scream. And another time, this was my dad walked into the bedroom and my dad says my mom sat straight up, looked at him and went, shoop.
Oh my gosh.
Which reminds me of granulated sugar.
Of course. But more recently, Scott had gotten up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, get a drink, whatever. And he had sat down on the bed to lay back down, but he had not laid back down yet. And I'm out like a light, just dead to the world. And I just said, "Don't touch me."
Oh my God.
And he was real confused at first, and he was like, "It's a good thing I hadn't laid down yet, because I knew you were just talking your sleep." He's like, "If I had laid down, though, my feelings might have been hurt."
Oh.
There was also apparently a time, because we both talk in our sleep a lot, there was a time semi-recently where I was talking in my sleep about a swarm of insects attacking a baby elephant.
Oh my gosh.
He brings that one up every now and again.
Listen, I know Kyle is listening because Kyle listens to every episode.
Yep.
If we talk about talking in our sleep, and I do not mention that one time I was on the phone with Kyle and I fell asleep, and I started telling him in full conversation about my plan for the garden and how our friend Sarah had showed up and she brought flowers, but they're dead. And that's not help at all. And how, this has to go here because it needs this much square footage. And also, here's the difference between squash and gourds. And also, got real quiet at one point, and he wasn't saying anything. And then I just went, "You gonna help me with this or what?" I know that he would be really upset if we talked about sleep talk and did not discuss that.
He would.
But what I was going to say is I hate when I do this, when you're so close to a deep sleep. You're just on the cusp of it, and then you do that little and it wakes you up and you're like, why? Ugh. But the thing is, I know why. I know why that happens. And
Tell me.
Unbelievable. You want to hear some stupid stuff your body does?
Yeah, I do.
Sometimes when certain chemicals aren't produced or aren't produced in the right amounts or at the right times, you'll fall asleep in a way that your brain doesn't know if you're falling asleep or if you're dying.
Oh my God.
So it just kind of like gives you a little something to test. It sends out a test. That's why you do the jolts. That's why you'll do like the like the weird like the weird little noises.
It's like a test of the emergency broadcast system, but the emergency broadcast system is you.
Yeah, your brain is just like, yo, homie, we good? Like, are you dead?
One time, last one, and then we'll get on track for this episode.
I promise.
One time, I was dead asleep, and I get woken up by Scott going, ooh. I laughed so hard I woke him up. He woke me up making the noise, and then I woke him up from laughing. And I was like, what were you dreaming? What were you dreaming? And he just goes, there was an intruder. I was scaring them away. And I was like, by pretending to be a ghost? Ooh.
You probably woke up and thought there was a ghost. Listen, dream logic is not real logic.
No, it's not.
So, as we are operating on no sleep,
mm-hmm.
I have had 2 cups of coffee today, which is 1.5 more than I usually have.
Yeah.
So we're just gonna like.
I had no coffee because I went to Dunkin' and their espresso machine was broken.
I went to the library today. I think I've talked about this on the podcast, but my aphasia and my like brain to speech problems that I have sometimes causes me to drop that first R, and it makes me really mad. It makes me so mad because
it's not that big a deal.
But it is because I've got a college degree.
So what?
I know the word is library. People are gonna think I'm dumb. Like I'm just like a library.
Hey, grammar is racist. Just push it down.
Okay. Plus, I have brain damage that's causing mine.
True.
I know how it's pronounced, but that first R is just really hard for my poor sluggish mouth to say.
All right.
So, I went to the library today.
That was worse.
And I walked in, and I was in my coat still, and I just chilled and chatted with everybody because I haven't seen people in forever that I work with.
Mm-hmm.
And I mentioned to them that your library had trouble with your heat this morning and that it was very cold.
Yeah.
And our library has the opposite problem all the time. So we were all sweltering to death. And I said, oh, yeah, my friend that works in her West Virginia library, she texted me today and told me that it was like 51 degrees. And everybody was like, must be nice.
No.
I know it's not. But it's one of the grass is always greener on the cooler side of the library system. Okay.
Yeah, they fixed it like fairly quick, but I have never been more grateful to have a space heater at my desk because it's always cold back there. But like that was extreme.
Yeah, well, that's when our boiler was just like running full blast. The back end of our building, which would be the equivalent of where you sit, I assume.
Yeah, I'm in the back,
like the office-y areas. The parts where people have their own desk. It's not like a circ area. It was like really hot. Like people were wearing like t-shirts in December. It was bad.
You know, I have an L-shaped desk. So there is desk between me and it, but the radiator is literally right next to me. But there is a super drafty over 100 and how many? 120-year-old window, so it just cancels out. The window is more drafty than the furnace is warm.
Yeah. Well, I'm on the first slide here. You don't go there yet, but I'm on the first slide, and the victim in this case is staring at me like, are we ever gonna talk about me? So let's get started.
Let's do it.
A crazy day just demands a crazy case.
Yep.
Our story is going to begin in Galveston, Texas.
Ooh, I've heard of Galveston. Don't ask me where it is.
I have too. So it's on there's a bay. It's like in the Gulf Coast. Okay. Also, I feel like because of my tenure with the weather TM, working for a weather channel, like I have heard of most places.
I feel like I probably just know of it from like HGTV.
It's possible. It feels like a very like Chip and Joanna Gaines area.
Exactly. Yeah.
Is that where they're from?
Maybe. I don't know. I'm not going to look it up.
That's immediately what I thought of. Everyone, all the like the stands, the Chip and Joanna stands are like screaming at us right now. They're like, they're from Waco. They're from Waco.
Okay.
Could do a whole episode on Waco as well.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have anything to do with Chip and Joanna, but...
Well, I'm allowed to not know because we canceled cable, so...
I thought you were going to say we canceled the Gaines family. I was like, what'd they do?
No.
I was like, what controversy did I not hear about with the Fixer-Upper family?
I will say they had some controversy, which was really stupid just because they were, like, having another kid. But, again, stupid.
Who cares?
Exactly.
Get a life. Okay, Galveston, Tejas. Our story begins... We've been tackling some, like, relatively... like recent ones recently. Haven't been going back too far. I will say the episode after this one is going to be an oldie. Okay. I have like several weeks ahead picked out. But we're still in the like late 20th century. In the 21st. September 28th, 2001.
Okay.
There's a man with his children, and they are fishing in Galveston Bay. So a man is fishing in Galveston Bay with his children, and he discovers a man's torso floating in the water.
Ooh.
So there is a documentary about this. Most true crime people, I feel like, will have watched it. But if you are a true crime person, you have not watched the documentary in this case. I'll talk about it later. If you haven't watched it, watch it because it's very good. But they interview the guy, the policeman, who went out to, like, get the body out. And he said the only way... Oh, this is so gross. But the only way that he could, like, get it out was to... reach down into like the neck cavity.
No.
Grab hold of, I don't know if it was the sternum or the clavicle, but one of these frontal chesty bones and like pull it out.
Oh God.
I assume wearing gloves, but like
what else that doesn't matter.
What else are you going to grab? Its arms? It doesn't have any.
I don't know.
This reminds me
I would think like, I don't know. I just thought maybe they'd have a net.
Oh, that's true. I don't know, but that just made me think of the TikTok sound that's like, her arms were cut off, her legs were cut off,
her tongue was
cut off.
Yes.
Like the whole thing. Because I was like, what are you going to do, grab its arms? Its arms were cut off. Its legs were cut off.
Meanwhile, my head is going, oh no, oh no.
Right? Well, that's like 90% of all murders are.
Yeah.
Back to this torso. So the police came and they fished the torso out by reaching into it.
Could you really call that fishing? I'm not quite sure.
They bobbed for torso.
Whoa.
Not with their mouths. So that's the thing. Would you rather?
No.
Would you rather reach into it and pull it out by its clavicle, or do it like bobbing for apples with your face?
I'd rather do it with my hand.
I'd rather not be there.
I'd rather not do it at all, but if I had to.
Well, there. You just needed perspective.
Oh.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I'm sure that those were the two options that went through that police officer's mind.
Well, boys, we got two things we can do. We can reach in here, use our hands, or... the old chompers out.
Gross.
So, along with the torso, they found several plastic garbage bags that were also just like floating around because bodies don't always sink.
Right.
And plastic garbage bags also sometimes hold air.
Yeah.
So they were literally just like floating on top. Again, bobbing for body parts. Because in these bags were the arms and legs.
Ooh.
Other things that were in these bags were a cover for a bow saw. Like just the part that goes on the outside so that you don't cut yourself.
Okay.
Not the saw, just the cover.
Right.
A receipt from a hardware store in the area.
It's as good as a diary.
A drop cloth. This is the best one. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
And a newspaper.
A newspaper?
Can Detective Liz discern why a newspaper might be helpful? We're going to use a Socratic method of storytelling.
Oh, I don't know yet.
Okay, well, what they did is they got all this stuff out and they started looking through it to see if anything was helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And they realized that on this newspaper was a delivery address.
Oh. See, I have never once had a newspaper delivered to my house. Like, that didn't even cross my mind.
We didn't either, but Grandma did.
Yeah.
And, like, Graham would keep newspapers for, like, ever because she had a coal furnace, so it was kindling. So, like, anytime you needed a newspaper, you would go to Graham for it.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, one time, I asked my grandma for a stack of newspapers so I could do a paper mache project. I was making my Princess Mononoke mask, and I was ripping it up into sheets, doing my thing, and it was from, like, a month back.
Mm-hmm.
And I did Princess Mononoke for Katsucon, so it would have been a February con. Would have been working at end of December, early January.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm ripping this papers apart. I'm starting to glue it down, and I realized I have been ripping up children's letters to Santa Claus that were published in the paper.
Oh, no.
And I felt like a monster.
I thought you were going to say obituaries. I was like, oh, yeah, been there, done that.
No, somehow worse. Somehow worse.
Aww.
Yeah, I felt real bad. I was like, oh, honey. I mean,
you just incorporated some Christmas magic into it.
Honestly, I saved them from getting burnt.
Yeah.
Because that's what Graham would have done. So, unfortunately, even though they had all of this stuff in these bags, one thing they did not have, and still do not have, like never have found, was the head.
Oof.
However, they didn't need it to figure out who this was. They went to the address that the newspaper had been delivered to.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a duplex in Galveston.
Okay.
They talked to the landlord of this place. I believe he was like a German man. The documentary says his name, but I didn't write it down or remember it.
Mm-hmm.
They talked to the landlord, and the landlord told them that one of the apartments was occupied by a 71-year-old man named Morris Black.
Okay.
The other was occupied by a middle-aged to older woman, like in that transitional area.
Sure.
Named Dorothy Siner. So, they knew that this victim wasn't Dorothy Siner.
Mm-hmm.
But it could be Morris Black.
Right.
If you go to your next slide.
Okay. We have an elderly gentleman.
This is Morris Black. Which you can see how he's been staring at me saying, would you please
get to it?
Yes. Hop to it. Let's discuss my death. The landlord also told them some more things about Dorothy Siner. He told them that Dorothy Siner was deaf and mute.
Oh.
So I believe that she communicated all of her, like
testimony?
No. She communicated all of her, like, needs and wants and such to the landlord via, like, writing, I think.
Okay. Got it. I was getting ahead of myself.
Yeah, just push that thought from your mind. He said that she traveled frequently, so she was rarely in the apartment, and that she paid her rent a year in advance.
Oh, wow.
Like, she would pay for the whole year. He also mentioned that because she was away so often, a lot of times, like, her brother-in-law would be there and staying in the house while she was away.
Sure, why not?
Sure, exactly. That's basically this whole story. Sure, why not? Unfortunately, for investigators, Signer was not around to question. But they did think it was really weird. Like, they got permission to search through the apartments and the trash and everything. I mean, you don't need permission to search through trash, but they searched through the apartment and the trash, his apartment and her apartment. And her apartment was, like, really sparse and neat and, like, almost Spartan. Like, it was very weird. Didn't feel lived in and definitely didn't feel feminine. Not that, like, every woman who lives in a house, you can, like, tell there's a woman's touch or whatever. But this didn't feel like any woman's home anybody had ever been in. So they were like, that's weird. That's, you know.
That's suspicious.
Exactly. And they were like, and she's rich enough to pay a year in advance for her rent and to be, like, traveling all the time.
But she's not going to fully furnish her home.
And she lives in a duplex in Galveston? Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I don't know.
So while they're looking through the trash, they, like, put that in, like, they put a pin in that, that train of thought. And they start looking through the trash. And they found one of those, like, appointment reminder cards from the eye doctor.
Sure.
And it was for a man named Robert Durst.
Okay.
And it had a date and a time, which was, like, that Friday or something. So, so the one investigator, he's heavily featured in the documentary. I'm going to be talking about the documentary a lot. I read a lot about this, but I also watched this documentary and really enjoyed it. It's, like, several parts. It's an HBO documentary.
Did you rewatch it for this episode, or, like, did you watch it a while ago?
I watched it a while ago, and then I didn't rewatch it for this episode, but I rewatched it recently on another night when I couldn't sleep. And I was like, let's rewatch The Jinx and talk about Robert Durst.
Why
He's
not?
weird. Exactly. So
you're just a weird, quirky girl.
I'm not like other girls. It's also, like, I know that there is a subsect of, like, true crime fan girls. Like, girls, that's not the right word, but you know what I mean. Like, women who are interested in true crime that do feel that way. I'm sure none of our listeners do, but because our listeners are cool. So one of the investigators who is in this HBO documentary goes to this eye doctor, and he's like, this guy we want to talk to him in relation to a crime that was committed, and if he shows up, he probably won't, but if he does, would you give me a page on my pager? Because it's 2001.
Wow. I feel like that's a HIPAA violation.
Do eye doctors have HIPAA? Does it matter?
Yeah.
I guess. Is it a HIPAA violation if the police are asking you? They're not asking him to divulge. They're not like, what's his prescription? They're just saying, if he shows up, can you tell us?
They should not be able to tell them.
I guess that's
not without
true.
A warrant of some kind.
I'm going to assume they had a warrant because he was like the only connection they had.
Who would issue an arrest warrant?
It wasn't an arrest. It wasn't an arrest. It was just we want to talk to this guy.
Do they issue those kinds of warrants?
I don't know.
Maybe
it was an arrest warrant because they do end up arresting him.
That seems sketchy, like on behalf of the eye doctor.
I will explain to you why they arrested him.
Okay.
So, they were like, this is going to be a long shot. This guy's probably not going to show up. This guy's probably, like, in Tijuana by now. Like, he's probably gone. He's not going to go to an eye doctor appointment and get his contacts refilled.
I mean, he might.
Well, he did. That is exactly what he did, is he went to the eye doctor, and the eye doctor went beep, 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 beep. And the guy with the pager, in the documentary, he's like, I looked at my pager, and I was like, well, that number looks familiar, but I don't know that number, but it looks familiar. And then he was like, then it said 911, and he was like, oh, it's the eye doctor. He's at the eye doctor. Mm-hmm. So they rolled in, and they were like, hey, friend, let's have a discussion down at the station, because you're our only link to this whole thing. Also, by this point, we're fairly sure, like, we're fairly certain. I was going to say fairly sure and fairly certain. And I'm fairly certain. We're fairly certain that Dorothy Signer is actually you in a wig. Like,
what?
We're pretty sure you are Dorothy Signer.
To this guy, they said that?
Yeah. And he was like, yeah.
What?
I told you. I was like, when I tell you what happened, you're not even going to believe it.
So, he in a wig was Dorothy.
Yeah.
But then he would, I'm assuming, just live there out of the wig in like normal garb, normal street clothes, and be like, oh, I am Dorothy's brother-in-law.
Yes. 100% yes. That's why he was a deaf mute who could only write down everything she had to say, because if he opened his mouth,
it would give it away.
You could hear that it was Robert Durst in there.
I mean, that's a new one to me.
Well, boy, we're going to fall down an Alice in Wonderland rabbit hole about why he was in Galveston and all of that. So
I still want to know how he
up.
paid his rent a year in advance.
Well, wouldn't you like to know? Here
we
go.
I would.
That segues us directly into the next.
I love when I do that for you.
The next chunk of the story. The investigators, the police, found out that Durst was the wealthy heir to a New York City real estate empire.
Well.
Although he had been passed over for his younger brother, Douglas. So he was no longer, like, he was the oldest brother, but he was no longer the one who was going to take over or run the company. He had worked for the company well into the 90s, but he was no longer working for them at this point. But that's where all his money came from, was that they were, like, this huge real estate company that was building skyscrapers and, like, had all these contracts all over the city.
Wow.
It was a well-known name. One of the people in the documentary is from, I wish I could remember which paper, but it's like a media outlet. And they talk about when they heard about this happening in Galveston and that Robert Durst had been picked up for it. He said in the newsroom, they all were like, our Robert Durst? Ooh. Like the Robert Durst that we know about?
Yep.
Yeah. So, he was like, he's a very strange guy. Like, clearly. that is the understatement of the century. But he is a very strange man. And he was very weird and suspicious, like, through their interviews and stuff. And he had been arrested. Right. Like, he was officially in custody. But they were like, fine. You can be released on $300,000 bail. And that was set on October 9th. And he was released on bail on October 10th.
Yeah, that's really not that much.
Yeah, that's chump change. Especially if you're
like an heir.
Yeah. So if you go to your next slide, this is Bob Durst during this is actually a still from the documentary, which is called The Jinx. So that is what he looks like. He is very intense. He is very like small. I do have some video clips for you to watch later where you'll hear his voice. He is very, I know that some like psychiatrists and stuff have attempted to diagnose him with things in relation to different kind of like defense strategies, I guess. And I read one thing that said like he's probably definitely got like some sort of he's definitely on the autism spectrum.
Okay.
I was going to use the word Asperger's because I believe, I was going to use the word Asperger's because I believe that was the official diagnosis that was given to him. Mm-hmm. However, it has recently come to my attention that the term Asperger's is like really problematic based on the doctor who gave the name, but also the idea of functioning versus quote unquote non-functioning autism. The idea that like functioning autistics are more worthy than non-functioning autistics, whatever. But I will say this. There are some experts who believe that he falls on the autism spectrum. That is my statement. He was released on October 10th, and he, like, almost immediately skipped town. Mm-hmm. Like, immediately was just like, deuces, I'm out.
I mean, if I had the money.
That's illegal. Like, you have to stay in the area so you can go to court hearings and stuff. As you'll find out. Like, yeah, I guess I'd break the law if I had enough money.
Fair point.
Like, I don't think it's illegal to leave the area, but I think it's highly frowned upon because it's sort of like a good faith thing.
Right.
And they want to know that you will come back.
I think it depends, too. Like, those are things that are negotiated.
I don't know, but he just, like, pieced out. He had a court hearing on the 16th of October. He literally had to stay in town for 6 days, and he was like, can't do it, gone.
Well.
Girl, don't do it. It's not worth it. Already did it. Already did it.
I'm just thinking about it.
My favorite is already did it.
Mm-hmm.
So he didn't show for this court hearing, and they were like, wee-oo, okay, warrant is issued for your arrest because you jumped bail, and that's illegal, Elizabeth.
Only a little.
Yeah. Here comes one of my favorite parts of this story. It's like not that notable unless you're me, I guess. I don't know why I find this hilarious. I don't know what about this just like hits something with me, but he was basically just like in the wind until November 30th when he got picked up in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania.
What?
And he didn't get picked up because they were like, yo, here's this guy who skipped bail in Galveston, Texas. No. They only found that out later after he had been picked up for this, which was he was in a Wegmans, grocery store. And he shoplifted a hoagie.
A hoagie?
A hoagie. I don't know why I think that's hilarious. I don't know.
He should have the money for a hoagie.
Okay, he had $500 in his wallet.
What the heck?
He had $500 in his wallet, and what he actually stole were Band-Aids, a newspaper, and a chicken salad hoagie. And he even is like, I don't know why I did it. Like, he doesn't even know because he's it's so like, weird.
It's like at this point, just why not?
Yeah. So, I don't know if everywhere has Wegmans. Does everywhere have Wegmans?
No.
Wegmans is like it's between Trader Joe's and Whole Foods.
Yeah.
It's like the middle point of that. It's like slightly bougie foodstuffs. You can buy some things in bulk. You can buy international foods there. Mm-hmm. It's like the fancier grocery store.
It's like a semi-high end.
Yeah. But it's not, like, super expensive. Like, Ryan and I have grocery shopped at Wegmans when we lived in that area where that had a Wegmans.
I think it's a Wegmans that is up in Erie that Kyle loved.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he has literally day tripped to Erie just to go shop at Wegmans.
Yes, because every time he was at my house, he would be like, can we go to Wegmans? Like, oh, we need stuff for dinner? We're going to Wegmans. Every time.
He's,
Wegmans,
easy to
please sponsor this boy. He doesn't have a podcast or anything, but he could use just, like, an endorsement.
Yeah. Like, give him a $1 off coupon. He'll take it.
Anything, I think he'd take at this point. Triscuits or something.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, Wegmans is that. And I know that everywhere doesn't call it this. So, a hoagie is a, like, sub sandwich. Submarine style sandwich.
That didn't even occur to me to clarify that.
Yeah, I only know that because when I worked at the park and part of where my like food stand restaurant area was half of it was hoagies, and we would have international guests or guests from out of the area be like, what is a hoagie? Like, what is this? It's a hoagie, a slider, a grinder, a submarine.
See, a slider is a different thing though.
Not a slider.
Okay.
I don't know why I said a slider.
It just rolled off the tongue.
Yeah, it just went with it. It's a sandwich on a roll, a long roll.
Okay.
And his specific one was chicken salad. But he had 500...
spending so much time on the hoagie.
Yeah, I just want everyone to know what we're talking about. Because I know that we not only have audience members that are from different parts of the country, but I know that we have audience members from different parts of the world. And, like, that's what a hoagie is. Yeah. It's a sandwich.
They're great.
They're delicious. Go pick up a hoagie. Yeah, it's what you would get from Subway or Quiznos or whatever.
I almost said Papa John's.
I almost said Oikos. So... You went for pizza. I think you could probably get a hoagie. I was thinking
Jimmy John's. That's why.
But I bet you could get a hoagie. You can get a hoagie from Domino's.
Anyway.
I almost said Oikos, and you can definitely not get a hoagie from them. They make yogurt.
We said this was going to be an interesting...
I told you, guys, there's no knowing where this train is headed.
We're just loopy. It's fine. We are.
So... The police searched his rental car. They found, this is so mind-boggling. The hoagie thing gets even worse because, like, he had $500 in his wallet. I've never had $500 in my wallet. Like, never, ever. I've never had $500 on my person. Maybe when I bought my car and I walked in with cash and was like, I would like to buy my car, please.
Yeah, I could count probably on one hand how many times.
Yeah, I've never just rolled. Let me put it this way: I've never rolled into a Wegmans with $500 in my wallet.
Yeah.
So he also had $37,000 in cash in his rental car.
What?
I think he can afford Band-Aids and newspaper and a Hogue. Okay, like, I think he can swing that.
Listen, he can just toss some of that my way if he's just going to steal anyway.
I'm also fairly certain that he still had the wig on at this time.
No.
Yes.
Why?
Because it gets worse, okay? This whole thing gets worse. So he had $37,000 in cash. He had 2 guns. That's not allowed. And he had marijuana. That's not allowed.
Nope.
He also had Morris Black's driver's license.
What? Why?
Because in the words of his defense team, Bob does not make good decisions.
No kidding.
Again, understatement of the world.
It's just like, you're under investigation. Wouldn't you want to distance yourself from it as much as humanly possible? But nah, just keep the driver's license.
Just drive halfway across the country to a Wegmans just to steal, like, what? Band-Aids are...
$3.
This isn't The Price is Right, but let's ballpark this.
$3 for Band-Aids.
We'll say $3 for Band-Aids. We'll say, what 50 cents for a newspaper? Newspapers are expensive.
It depends. Is it a Sunday or a weekday paper?
November 30th, 2001. I know that September 11th was a Tuesday.
Is there a fast way to figure this out?
Does that help?
Did you say November what?
September 11th was a Tuesday.
No, but what day is this?
November 30th.
November 30th. It's a Friday. 50 cents is 75 cents.
Okay, so we're going to say $3.50. And then the hoagies, it is Wegmans, so the hoagie might be like $5.
It's 2001 though.
But it's Wegmans.
I don't know. Are we talking like a 3-foot party sub?
I don't think it was a 3-foot party sub. It's like that Ron Swanson clip where he's like, "That's a party platter. It serves 12." Yes. It's like, I know what I'm about, son. I think a Wegmans
less than $20.
A Wegmans prepared chicken salad sandwich. Is at least high number $5.
Yeah.
In 2001.
Yeah.
So we'll say it's $8.50. He has $500 in his wallet, $37,000 in his car. He's driven across the country just to do this.
And not a single heck to give.
Yeah. None. Not a one. Another thing he had in his car were directions to Gilberta Najami's house in Connecticut. We will discuss Gilberta Najami later.
Okay.
Why did he have directions to this woman's house? I'll explain later. Just keep that name lodged in your brain. Now, you asked why he still had the wig.
Yeah.
And
please don't tell me it's some weird sex thing.
No, there's actually like not a lot of weird sex things. There's like no weird sex things in this trial, which is like
refreshing.
Odd. It's very odd. So, if you go to your next slide, Durst went really far to try to make himself look as little like himself as possible. He talks about this in the documentary because he is interviewed in the documentary. And they're like, "Did you shave your eyebrows off?" And he was like, "Yeah, I was trying to disguise myself. Like,
obviously."
Duh. Yeah, so he was trying to, like, not look like Robert Durst, who they were looking for. So he was like, put the wig on. Who cares? Shave my eyebrows off. Who cares? This is even before 2020 when we were all losing our minds and shaving our eyebrows off. Like, it's nuts. Ryan and I do this thing where, like, Kathy, if you're listening, hello. Kathy is afraid to do certain things because she thinks she'll mess them up.
Mm-hmm.
So she's like, during the height of the pandemic, she was like, I keep trimming my hair, but I can't get the back of it. So I'm trimming the top, and I'm going to keep trimming the top, and then the back is going to grow out, and then I'm going to have a mullet.
Mm-hmm.
And we were like, Mom, give yourself a mullet. Who cares? Like, it's 2020. And then she was afraid to, like, alter curtains to fit her window.
Easy.
I was altering curtains, so I had just cut them. And she was like, oh, Hannah, I could never. And so Ryan and I are always like, we're all going to die. We're all going to die anyway. We're going to die someday. Give yourself a mullet. Cut your curtains.
Live a little.
Shave off your eyebrows. Who cares? Like, death is coming for us all. Just do what you feel like doing. Who cares? Yeah. If you're not hurting anybody else, cut your curtains. Give yourself a mullet. Shave off your eyebrows. Wear a woman's wig. Shoplift from a Wegmans. Don't do that last one. I just got on a roll.
You really did. I was impressed.
That was the most coherent train of thought I've had in 48 hours.
And just like that, it's gone.
Gone. It has left the station. So they pick him up. At first, he has one attorney in Pennsylvania.
I thought you were going to say one eyebrow.
No, we're off the eyebrows.
I know, but it was just the first thought in my head. I'm sorry.
I just wanted you to see this weird Eggman. This man who looks like he's about to say,
what's on his nose? Is it a Band-Aid?
I think it's a Band-Aid. Probably one of the Band-Aids he stole. He looks He genuinely looks like he's about to say, Harry Potter.
Oh, no.
Come to die.
Oh my god. He does. He looks honest to God a bit like Professor Quirrell.
Yeah, he looks like Professor Quirrell. He looks like Professor Quirrell turned around.
Yeah.
So it's Voldemort on his head.
Oh my god.
It's bad, people. Look at the brief. Go to social media and look at this picture. If you've never looked at the brief before, go look at this picture because it is like a turtle without a shell.
It's just so confusing.
It's bad. It looks bad. People need eyebrows. Have eyebrows. Or don't. I don't care.
Live your life.
Live your life. Cut your curtains, shave off your eyebrows. We're back to this. He is arrested. He has one lawyer in Pennsylvania, and then they extradite him to Texas.
Okay.
And he spends like a crazy amount of money on this defense team. I don't know if he did it or if like the Durst family did it.
Mm-hmm.
But he spends all this money on his defense team. And one of his defense lawyers' names is Dick DeGuerin. And he is interviewed in the documentary. And he basically was like, it was self-defense.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't say it wasn't. Their whole strategy was, we're going to spin a tale that this was self-defense and that Bob panicked and he dismembered the body. Yes. Did he throw away the body? Yes. But he did not kill him with malice, and you cannot prove that he did.
I was gonna say, like, I feel like that goes out the window at dismemberment,
But the thing that they told the jury was, he is not on trial for dismembering a body. He is on trial for murder. Like,
listen,
it's this whole thing. So
I've never served on a jury, but I would not put up with that.
They interview jurors in this documentary. I keep wanting to say podcast. It's not a podcast.
It's okay.
This is a podcast. They basically were like, listen, he has, again, this is their diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
He has Asperger's syndrome. He has Asperger's disorder. So anything that he does is not going to be, basically, he's neurodivergent.
Mm-hmm.
So anything that he does, any way that he reacts is going to be different from what a quote unquote normal person would do.
Mm-hmm.
So their thing was, or their, the story they spun was that Black had come in and like they had become friends and that he had like kind of, chit-chatted with him, and they both shot guns, and like he showed him his gun.
Mm-hmm.
And that at one point he and Black ended up struggling over the gun because Black was very angry, and they even like reenacted this in court of like how the struggle went and what I did and all of that. And during the struggle, the pistol discharged. So, as pistols do during struggles, and that he said that Black was shot in the face. And on cross-examination, like, Bob Durst, first of all, he took the stand, people. Like, they let this man, who, autism spectrum or not, is an unhinged individual. Yeah. I would be shaking in my cowboy boots, because this is Texas. My spurs would be a-jangling. I would be terrified of what was going to come out of this man's mouth.
Right.
When he talks, like, I want you to watch the documentary so bad after this. When he talks, it's like you can tell he doesn't have a clue what's coming next. Like, but he's so confident in it that it's just, like, intense and confident, but also just, like, one step away from, like, the babblings of a toddler.
Mm-hmm.
So He said, yes, I shot him, but it was an accident. It was during a struggle. And during cross-examination, he said, yes, I used a paring knife, 2 saws, and an axe. The axe belonged to Morris Black to dismember him and get rid of the body. Well, you got to get in the little spots. What are you going to use a paring knife for, like, the little spots? You for real? Also, maybe this is too much. Maybe this is like, I mean, if you didn't like the Night Stalker,
yeah,
you're not gonna like what I'm about to say. But they had said you could tell that when he had cut up the body, you could tell that what he started with, like that he had started with one leg or one arm or whatever, and that the last thing he did was one of the arms. Because he didn't get it the whole way through. He cut it like partway through and then he just like broke it off basically. Just snapped it off.
Yuck.
Yeah. So pretty much they were like, yo, you don't have the head, so you can't prove that this is or is not what happened. And in a criminal court, it is the prosecution's goal, basically, their role is to provide the burden of proof and to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that this person committed the thing that they are being charged with. It's not the defense attorney's, like, job to say it didn't happen that way. Mm-hmm. It's just basically to sow doubt and to say, like, listen, because, like, what else were they going to say? Like, oh, he died in his apartment and he just cut him up because.
Right.
Like, basically spinning it as a self-defense thing and then being like, he's neurodivergent. Like, he just, panicked. And there's another aspect to this that I'm going to pepper in here not too far from now that will make things make a little bit more sense as to why he might do something like this if this was what happened, which I don't think is what happened.
Okay.
But I just want to go out there and say I do not think it was in self-defense, but this is the yarn they were spinning.
Right.
The jury acquitted him on November 11th, 2003.
Wow.
On the 21st of December 2004, though, he pled guilty to 2 counts of bail jumping, which he had done.
Fair, yeah.
That's illegal. And 1 count of evidence tampering, so the dismemberment of the body.
Oh.
And he received a sentence of 5 years and was given credit for time served, which meant he was in prison for 3 years. Mm-hmm. Then he was paroled in July of 2005. He had to stay nearby. Like, he wasn't allowed to, like, go places because parole has a lot of rules that you have to follow. And then he was officially released from custody March 1st of 2006.
I'm really concerned here because I know we have a lot more slides.
We do, yeah. So if you go to your next slide.
Okay.
This is Robert Durst during the trial. He's there in the little jacket by the bailiff. I'm not sure if this was the day that they read his sentence to him or not. Mm-hmm. And the picture on the right there is him demonstrating something to do with the gun and the situation of, oh yes, we both. Oh yes, we both. Oh yes, we both reached for the gun. Mm-hmm. Chicago reference for anybody who cares.
Somebody will.
There is a obviously video of them in the courtroom, and when they say that they have found him not guilty, he turns to his lawyer and he says, "Did they say not?" And he says, "Yes, they said not guilty." And then he's like, sits for a second, then he goes, "Are you sure?" Like, I don't know. Okay, this guy is like so far removed from anything that I'm familiar with.
Yeah.
His personal brand of whatever the heck is going on here is not anything I have experienced in my life.
No.
So the judge who had presided over the trial, Susan Chris, has gone, like, I sent you a thing earlier about her on MSNBC. She goes on things when he's relevant, and talks about it. And in March of 2015, somebody asked, like, do you think that he did it? Like, do you think it was murder or self-defense? She said, quote, "You could see that this person knew what they were doing and that it was not a first time. The body was cut perfectly like a surgeon who knew how to use this tool on this bone and a certain kind of tool on that muscle. It looked like not a first-time job. That was pretty scary," unquote. So, non-committal answer, but I think it does say something.
Ooh, it says a lot.
It says nothing and everything. So to spread a little, like, nuggets of what the heck was going on here. The reason that Robert Durst went from New York City, where he had lived all his life and worked, uprooted himself, put on a wig, and pretended to be Dorothy Steiner in a truly, like, Tootsie move. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Tootsie. Dorothy Steiner was the name of a girl he went to high school with.
Oh.
But I like the fact that he dressed in drag and called himself Dorothy because it feels very much like Tootsie.
Yeah.
So the reason that he did all of this was because he could not handle the heat from the press, from the DA's office, from everyone who thought that he murdered his first wife. Big frown. It was a big and little frown.
I mean, I obviously had a suspicion once you mentioned what the judge had said. But
well, yeah.
I didn't expect it to be a spouse.
Well, buckle up, because it ain't just a spouse. Oh, here we go. So, in the fall of 1971, since we got in my time machine, which works again.
Yeah.
And we shoot back to 1971. Kathleen McCormick, who went by Kathy, just like our Kathy.
Mm-hmm.
Our Kathy is a Kathleen. Kathleen McCormick met Robert Durst. She was a medical student. She was quite taken by him. I don't know how much of this played, I don't know how much of this was like, wow, your personality is so cool and I want to be with you, and how much of this was like, wow, you've quite a lot of money. I'm not saying anything about her. I'm not saying that she was materialistic or whatever. I'm just saying he does a lot of stuff that I would not have put up with if he wasn't loaded.
Mm-hmm.
So, after 2 dates they'd gone on, he was like, "Hey, Kathy, would you like to come live in my house in Vermont with me?"
I'm thinking, how many houses does he have?
He owned a health food store in Vermont. That was his latest endeavor.
Not a
at
Wegmans.
The time. Not a Wegmans. He was like, "Hey, come live with me. Let's do this health food store thing. Come move in with me." So she did. She moved there in January of 1972.
Okay.
After 2 dates. Like, I guess if you know, you know, but I don't know.
I certainly don't.
Quite frankly, I don't know. So, obviously, in 1972, he hadn't yet fallen from grace in the Durst family. And his father, Seymour, was like, "Hey, oldest son, what are you doing in Vermont running a health food store? You have an empire to learn how to run. You need to come back to New York."
Sure.
So they moved back to Manhattan. And they got married on April 12th, 1973. So they weren't even married when they moved in together.
Scandalous.
I know. That was also incidentally his birthday, which I find very weird. You know, I don't like bundling things together like that.
Yeah.
Like, I feel so bad for Kathy and for, like, my nephew, Axel, who are December 22nd and December 23rd, respectively, because, like, people want to bundle Christmas and your birthday, and that's so lame.
Yeah.
And, like, I had told Ryan, like, if you're going to propose, do not do it on Valentine's Day. Do not do it on Christmas. Like, I don't want to sound like gimme presents, but, like, do not cop out and just get me that. Like, that is not a Christmas present. That is a life event.
My birthday gets bundled, too, even though it's not as big of a deal.
Gets bundled with your anniversary?
No, with Halloween.
Oh, that's true. I jumped. My birthday gets bundled with your anniversary.
Yeah, but that's much smaller scale.
Yeah, it's different. It's different. I wasn't thinking about that.
Plus, that wasn't the first date that we picked, but we had to move it. So.
For real, though, like, I would not want to get married on my birthday because you know that there is an 8-night celebration that leads up to my birthday.
Also known as Hanukkah.
I'm sorry if that's problematic. I feel like it's problematic, but it just worked so well. And I love to celebrate. So, forgive me, Jewish community. Daphna, is that problematic? Let me know.
She does not listen, I don't think.
Well, Kyle can ask.
Yeah, this is like not her thing.
Okay, but yeah, I would not get married on my birthday. No. Absolutely not.
No.
See the head movement.
I like what my parents did because their anniversary is the month of my mom's birthday, but the date of my dad's birthday.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't technically share a day, but it's like a little bundle.
Ryan and I would like to get married in September, I believe, of next year. We're planning our wedding. We're not engaged yet. But
as long as you're both on the same page.
We are. This is like we're both talking about like when would you like to get married?
Yeah.
Depending on when things are available and all of that, like especially COVID throws another thing into it.
I think it's gonna be harder to book.
I don't want to get married too late in September because it would be so close to my birthday.
Yeah.
That's part of it. Okay, but anyway, they got married on his birthday, which I just can't vibe with.
Yeah.
They lived together for a while before she disappeared. And she disappeared. They got married in April of 1973. She disappeared January 31st of 1982.
Okay.
So they lived together for 9 years. He was, by his own admission, like physically abusive, emotionally abusive. And he says it like, oh, you know, like we would have fights where like, you know, there was punching, there was hitting, there was like it's nothing. And I don't know if he's saying that is coming from both sides. Like she would hit, I would hit. Neither is okay.
No.
And one doesn't make the other okay.
No.
And like we always say, he is the only one who gets to tell this story.
Right.
So it's but like this was like well documented. Like her friends and family are like, yeah, this would happen. Like we knew about it. She was still a medical student. She was in her last year at Albert Einstein College of Medicine in the Bronx. Was like so close to finishing her degree and being like a doctor. She was going to become a pediatrician.
Oh.
I know. So she randomly showed up. She wasn't invited to this. There was a dinner party being thrown by her friend Gilberta Najami. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that name. But she just like rolled in and was like, "What's up? I'm here." Mm-hmm. And it was sort of like the vibe I get is like if I had a dinner party going on and you weren't invited and you just like showed up, I would just be like, "Oh, hello, here is a plate." Like, mm-hmm. It would not be like, "What are you doing here? You cannot be here." But Gilberta said that she being Kathy, was really upset and was wearing red sweatpants. And she thought that was really weird because Kathy usually dressed better. Like, she didn't. She's like your mother, where you don't wear sweatpants out of the house.
Yeah.
Again, I just don't vibe with that. I'm sorry. Sorry, Rosina. I just don't. When she was done, she had been drinking a little bit, but she was like, "I'm going home to South Salem, where she and Bob owned a home there." They also owned an apartment in Manhattan. And the point of that was that she would go stay there when she had to, like, do med school stuff.
Okay.
Like, it was just more convenient to be on, like, basically on campus. Yeah, so she was kind of drunk. She got a phone call from Bob, and she was like, "I'm out. I'm going to drive home, go see my husband." Mm-hmm. According to Robert Durst, they argued when she got home. She said, "You got to drive me to Manhattan and take me to this apartment." And he was like, "I'm not driving to Manhattan, and you're not driving because you're drunk. Like, it's not happening."
Might be the best thing he said so far.
Yeah. Well, he claims that he took her to a train station and put her on a commuter train.
Ooh, and there it goes.
Yeah, I mean, he claims he put her on a train and sent her to the city. What?
"You're too drunk to drive, but allow me to just put you on a train and you end up where you end up."
The thing is, buzzed driving is drunk driving. Well, it's not to say she was like blackout drunk, but according to him, she was too drunk that he was like, "You're not getting behind the wheel of a car, but I think you can handle being on a train and knowing what stop you have to get off."
Yes.
It's New York City. If you are like going on the commuter train all the time, like whatever. Mm-hmm. So he told police that he went and had a drink with his neighbor before he went home. And then he called and he spoke with Kathy over the telephone at the apartment. Like, "Hello, I have gotten here."
Okay.
But in the documentary, he says, quote, "That's what I told police. I was hoping that it would just make everything go away." And what he is supposedly talking about is the neighbor who he allegedly had a drink with refutes that. He says he didn't stop here. We did not have a drink. And Bob basically says, "I lied to the police hoping that like they would just not look at me because it wasn't me. I pretend I do not see it." Like,
they surely won't fact check this.
I don't know. Again, Bob does not make good decisions.
No.
The next day, they being the med school, had allegedly gotten a phone call from a female saying, like, "This is Kathy Durst. I'm not feeling well today. I'm not going to come in."
Okay.
So that is when they think that might have been her. Mm-hmm. They are not sure. I'm going to skip through this a lot. There's like a lot of other stuff that happens, but if you go to your next slide here. This is their house in South Salem. Aww. This is pictures of them. That top right picture, I don't know what is going on in that door frame, but that looks like a straight up ghost.
Yeah.
And then this picture down here with this dog, that's, yes, it's an Alaskan Malamute. That is them on their wedding day. They had several Alaskan Malamutes over the years. Most of them were named Igor or Igor. That's going to come into play later.
I always thought it was weird when people like name their dog the same thing as their deceased dog.
I think it's weird when people do that with their kids too. They used to do that in the way back times. Vincent van Gogh had an older brother who died, and his name was Vincent. And his mother would make him go and stand at the grave and be like, hello, this is your dead brother. But like, imagine looking at a gravestone with your name on it. Like, what?
I don't know. Kids were harder to keep back then. The mortality rate was not ideal.
Yeah, but like, okay, that one died. Why call the next one the same thing?
Too confusing.
Alexander Hamilton had 2 Phillips.
Yeah.
Like, excuse me?
I don't know.
You are replacement Philip.
I wouldn't do it.
I wouldn't either. Kathy, I told you, was his first wife.
Yes.
His second wife, he married on December 11th of 2000. And her name is Deborah Lee Chariton.
Okay.
She is in the next slide.
Wow.
He basically claims that he married her. It was like a marriage of convenience or something. But like, she has a lot of opinions about things in this interview. Like when they're talking to her and when she's talking, like there's footage of her talking to him. But there's also all of these like theories, okay, that he had these dogs, these Malamutes. A bunch of them are named Igor or Igor. And the theory, I guess, that's been posited is that he killed these dogs. And he was practicing killing them and disposing of them. And he to practice for humans. Now, he claims that that's a load of malarkey and that is not the case. That is that he has like lots of like there were only 3 of them and they, you know, this one got hit by a car. This one, the one he says ate an apple core, and the core got stuck in its stomach, and that it had an operation, but it died.
Jeez.
I don't know. I put her name there because it's spelled stupidly.
I appreciate it.
So I typed it out for you just to sort of not have to deal with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, there is apparently footage somewhere where she would visit him in like the hospital, or not the hospital, the prison, and they would like call each other, and he would use the word Igor. I'm going to say Igor because I just don't care. He would use the word Igor almost like a verb. Like, I thought about Igoring BM, who was, like, I guess his code for his brother. Oh. So they have a theory that, like, these two have been talking in code all about, like, all the people he's killed. I don't know how much water that holds, but I just thought I'd touch on it now that we were talking about his first marriage and now his second marriage.
Yeah.
The next thing that happened was Robert Durst had a friend named Susan Berman. Susan Berman was the daughter of David Berman, who was a gangster. He was like part of the mafia in the 40s and was from Las Vegas. So I don't know exactly how they met, But they were very good friends. She, like, stuck up for him. She wrote a lot of books, like nonfiction books about the mafia and about, like, being the daughter of somebody from the mob. She had his photograph, like his mugshot, hung up in her house, which, like, I don't know much about the mafia, but I thought one big thing was, like, you don't talk about the mafia. Like, if you're a part of it, you don't, like, discuss it.
I mean, my family has no part of it, and they still don't like to talk about it.
Yeah. Like, I know that there's, like, cultural, like, the mob is not just, like, a gang. It's, like, a whole thing. Yeah. It's, like, got a whole culture around it. Mm-hmm. But the important thing about Susan Berman is that on December 24th, 2000, neighbors called the police. Her neighbors called the police and told them that her back door to her house was open and that her dogs, she had 3 little fox terriers that were apparently, like, the light of her life. They said, basically, her dogs are running around and her door is open, like, something is wrong. Mm-hmm. When police got there, she lived in Benedict Canyon, Los Angeles. When they got there, they found her murdered in her home, and it looked like it was, like, execution style. Oof. So they didn't know, like, is this a mob connection? She's been talking about that.
Could be.
That kind of thing. But what happened was, a few days after this, the Beverly Hills Police Department was who was in charge of this case. It, like, fell in their jurisdiction. They received a letter. It had been postmarked on the 23rd, not the 24th. It had been postmarked on the 23rd, but they got it a couple days later. And it basically had her address and then the word cadaver.
Ooh.
If you go to your next slide here. This is Susan Berman. On the right is Susan Berman with Bob Durst. Mm-hmm. And then this is the note that got sent to them. Here's the thing. I don't know why it doesn't have it here. Oh, I do know why. So this is the note that was inside. On the outside of the note, they addressed it, the person who wrote it, addressed it to, like, the Beverly Hills Police, or Beverly Hills was part of it. And they spelled Beverly wrong.
Okay.
They spelled it Ley. And they used these big block letters, mm-hmm. like these big all caps letters. And they thought that was really, really weird, but there wasn't really anything. They couldn't get anything from that.
Yeah, and I noticed that, like, canyon is kind of split into 2 words.
Yeah, canyon.
Right.
So they knew, they didn't, I don't know that they put this, I don't know if they put him into this at the time, but basically they knew that he had been in Northern California, like, right before she was killed. Mm-hmm. And that he had flown, like, basically, like, one flight. He had got, like, a flight immediately. On the day before her body was discovered, he had flown from San Francisco to New York. Mm-hmm. He had been sending her a lot of money. And people think that she was going to talk about what she knew. Mm-hmm. They think that she was the person who called the med school and said, I am his wife and that I am not going to be in today. And so they think that he was also being blackmailed by her. Like, give me money and I won't say what I know. Mm-hmm. So they think that he basically went and killed her. And then the other thing that they think links him to that note is that they don't think that the average person would use the word cadaver when talking about a dead body.
Yeah.
But they do think that the husband of a medical student would use the word cadaver.
Possibly.
Kathy apparently, obviously, when you're a medical student, you have a cadaver that you work with.
Mm-hmm.
Kathy had a cadaver, and she would often talk about her cadaver. So that was like a link that people have made. The real meat of this, like, whole, because, like, everything is so, like, yeah, it kind of seems like he did it, but there's nothing there that you can really take to court.
Yeah.
But just you wait.
I mean, crimes have been convicted on circumstantial evidence alone.
I know. But it all just, who knows?
Mm-hmm.
It's just a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, all this comes to, like, a big sort of crescendo, I guess. Let me find it. Basically, all of this comes to a crescendo. It really starts to build. In 2010, if you go to your next slide, a filmmaker named Andrew Jarecki made a film starring Ryan Gosling and Kirsten Dunst. Ryan Gosling was Fred Durst. That's Limp Bizkit. I was wondering how long it was going to take me to do that. I'm sundowning.
That's fine.
So, Ryan Gosling was Fred. No, he wasn't. Ryan Gosling was Bob Durst.
There you go.
Kirsten Dunst plays Kathy Durst. And this movie is about her disappearance, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Jarecki said, I wanted to make a film that Bob Durst would want to watch.
Ooh.
Like, I don't want to just make a film about this. I want it to be a film that he would give the time of day to. And the All Good Things title comes from the name of their health food store. So that's the connection. So, Robert Durst did watch All Good Things, and he called up Andrew Jarecki. And he was like, yo, I want to talk about this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure, like, the ins and outs or if it even matters, but somehow Andrew Jarecki got Bob Durst to take part in this documentary.
No.
Yes. If you go to your next slide.
Ugh. I don't know why I'm surprised.
That is Andrew Jarecki on the right, or the left. You know who's on the right. That is Andrew Jarecki on the left. His name is Andrew Jarecki. And this is The Jinx. This is the 6 parts, rather. 6 parts documentary that HBO produced. It is still on HBO. You can watch it. It is titled The Jinx, The Life and Deaths of Robert Durst.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes through everything, like stuff I didn't have time to cover or just didn't cover in this. It's all in there.
Well, yeah, you don't have 6 parts.
Exactly. But the one big important thing that happens throughout this podcast, or this documentary, is that Bob repeatedly forgets his mic is on. So obviously, we have a rapist in Lincoln Park. I've been tainted by internet memes, and I've never been able to say, well, obviously, since Huntsville rapist, bed intruder. I'm sorry, that's like elderly memes also. So he repeatedly forgets his mic is on. So he's in this documentary, so he has to have a lav mic on.
Mm-hmm.
And there are times where, like, they keep it in, but there are times where he'll get, like, a specific, like a difficult question. And again, this, I'm sure he's neurodivergent.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that there's something going on there. Which, like, I'm neurodivergent, you're neurodivergent. Like, there's nothing, like we say all the time, just because you're neurodivergent, just because you're mentally ill, anything like that doesn't make you automatically more susceptible to crime.
Right.
In fact, it's the exact opposite.
Although you could be an idiot like me and forget that jumping bail is illegal.
Yeah. If you have enough money, nothing is illegal. So he'll forget that his mic is off or is on, and they'll ask him a question, and then he'll be like, they'll like break for something, and he'll be sitting there like muttering to himself about the question. And at one point in it, his lawyer comes up and is like, hey, your mic is on. And he's like, I know, I'm just thinking about the question. And they're like, okay, but your mic is on. So like, remember that your mic is on. Like, you can't be just saying whatever. A lot of it feels like he's just like talking to himself, which like, who doesn't talk to yourself? But
right.
You can't do that when you're, you know, a murderer with a lav mic on.
I mean, double jeopardy.
Can't. You just can't. He's never been tried for these murders.
Oh.
At this point, during the documentary, which was in 2015. Oh, I just bonked my mic with my nose. I got too excited. So, one thing that they uncovered during this documentary investigation, they talked to basically Susan Berman's heir, her closest living kin, basically. Mm-hmm. I don't remember how he's related to her. I think he is her stepson, but he got a bunch of her stuff upon her death. It went to him. And also, Robert Durst got in touch with him and was like, I'm so sorry about this thing that's happened. Like, you know, your stepmother was very important to me. Like, we were very good friends, all of that. And they got to talking, and they became friends, and the stepson was going to college at the time, and Bob Durst paid for his college.
Wow.
Like, it was the whole thing. So, you can understand why this man, this stepson of Susan Berman, felt pretty conflicted when he was going through her stuff for this documentary, and he happened to find a letter that was sent to Susan from Bob Durst definitively, and it's written, the address is written in block letters, like all caps, and Beverly is spelled wrong. So he takes it in this documentary, he takes it to the filmmakers, and he's like, do with this what you will. I feel very conflicted about this, but I feel like I have to bring it up because obviously. So they take it to like forensic handwriting experts, and they give him more of Bob's handwriting and all of that, and they really look at it. And if you go to your next slide, one of these is the cadaver note, and one of these is Bob's note to her. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that looks pretty similar to me.
Yep.
So they basically were like, hey, buddy, what do you think of this? Like, that looks pretty similar, but what do you think of this? So I'm about to put on here because I forgot.
I'm so nervous. He's just so not smart.
So basically, this is at the very, very end. This is the very, very end of the entire documentary.
Okay.
They said, what do you think of this? And he's like, oh, it just looks like they're spelled. Like, he basically dodges the whole thing. And when they're done, it cuts, but the cameras are still rolling. His mic is still on. And they're like, so what, you know, let's get Bob some lunch. Like, he's got lunch here. You got to take some of these sandwiches home, whatever. And he says he's going to use the bathroom.
Tuna hoagies?
They're chicken salad hoagies.
Or chicken salad. So I was close.
He says he's going to use the bathroom. And the clip that I just sent you to watch is what happens while he is in the bathroom.
Okay. Am I good to go?
We're good. I feel like this is late in the episode, but do you want to do the ad break here?
Yeah, it's
we usually
super
do that
late,
while
but
you
that's
listen
fine.
to things.
Yeah.
Okay. Ad break time. And that is the end of it. Like, that's where it ends. That's where it ends. So.
What a weird dude, though.
He's so weird. He's so weird.
The way that he is talking to himself.
Does it not sound like one side of a conversation?
It does.
So the thing when he says, okay, so hold on. For those of you who did not listen to the audio clip, it is in the brief if you want to go listen to it. He says, I have a transcript in front of me.
It's only it's like 2 minutes long.
I was listening to it as you were watching.
Yeah.
And I was like getting ready. And when he hit the end, I was like, she's going to die. Okay. So he says, quote, just in case you didn't go see it.
Mm-hmm.
Quote, there it is. You're caught. I'm going to speed through it. He does not speed through it.
No.
You're right, of course. But you can't imagine. Arrest him. I don't know what's in the house. Oh, I want this. What a disaster. He was right. I was wrong. And the burping. He was like burping through the interview. It was like real weird. And then he says, I'm having difficulty with the question. Mm-hmm. The first time that he forgot his mic was hot, that's what he was like repeating to himself. And his lawyer came over and was like, hey, you need to quit. Your mic's hot. That's what he was repeating. So I find it very interesting that he repeated that again during this little soliloquy. Then he says, what the hell did I do? Killed them all, of course. And it is chilling. Like, that part is chilling.
Yeah.
It is. Like, that's really strange.
It's unsettling because it sounds very much like you're hearing one side of a telephone call or something like that. Like, the way he's speaking is not a typical train of thought. It's not like just thinking out loud. Like, that's not what he's doing here.
No. So they turned this over to the police.
Right.
Like, all of this, the letter and this. And on the same day as the final episode was broadcast, the FBI arrested him in New Orleans.
Okay.
Your next slide here is him being transported in New Orleans.
Ew.
Yeah, he's a very strange guy. Like, I find it very hard. I find it hard to be like, he is obviously neurodivergent. Like, let's just...
Yes.
He is obviously mentally ill. Like, some people have said he might be schizophrenic. Like,
that's
he has
kind
shown
of
schizophrenia.
That was the vibe that I got from that video clip. It didn't seem... to be fair, I don't know a whole lot of people with autism, but I do know a lot of neurodivergent, like, generally people. That didn't seem like autism in my, like, limited scope. That seemed a lot more like schizophrenia, hallucination. What's it called? It's not... They changed the name of it, and it's not in my mind right now.
What, can you, like, circumnavigate it and help you?
They used to refer to it as multiple personality disorder, but that's not.
DID.
Thank you, dissociative identity disorder. Yeah, it seemed, but even that wouldn't be it because you don't normally have a conversation out loud like that with DID.
No.
So,
obviously, anyone who knows better about this topic, we're obviously not experts.
Yeah.
Let us know what this feels like to you, what this sounds like to you, if you have any sort of, like, professional opinions or personal experience with something like this.
I'd love to hear it.
I do too.
Like, I feel like I'm saying it every episode, like, nothing justifies the actions, but something about learning, like, what makes these people tick is so interesting to me. So to have, like, actual professional insight on this would be great.
So I'm gonna, like, really speed run through this, but he was arrested. He was charged with the murder of Susan Berman.
Mm-hmm.
He has not been charged with the murder of his first wife, Kathy.
Hmm.
But recently, even as recently as March of 2020, basically they were gonna like do his trial, and then COVID happened. So everything is getting pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed. So in April, it's basically been delayed until April of this year. So we'll see what happens then.
Wow.
But like it's happening now. Like all of this is happening now. He's been brought up on like firearm charges. It's crazy. You can read more about like the rest of this in the brief, because this is going to be such a long episode if we just keep talking about everything.
Right.
And also, like, frankly, I want to eat. So, but there's so much stuff going on. Like, he is even like, there's so many other people that they think he may have killed.
Really?
I was going to get more into this if we had more time, but I really don't think we have more time.
Yeah.
But the next slide is one of the victims that they think he is responsible for. I believe this is 18-year-old Lynn Scholes from Middlebury, Vermont. There's like there's like people that went missing, like young girls that went missing around the like areas of his health food stores and like his homes and stuff. There's like a lot of weird stuff. So,
but they weren't people he necessarily like knew.
No.
Okay.
But they can like, they have ways to link him. If you want to read more about that those are all going to be in the brief. All of my sources are in the brief.
Oh, I'm going to see if Scott would be up to watching this documentary.
It's
I am
so good.
I'm invested so much.
It's so, like, it doesn't get into this stuff because obviously it stops with that clip I showed you. But you get to see him, like, hours and hours of him, and see like how he thinks and like the way that he says stuff so nonchalantly. It's very, very eerie.
You know what would be great?
What?
And feel free to cut this out if you don't like the idea. But maybe after his trial and we see what happens, we could do a second episode and you
update.
and you could dive deeper into some of this stuff.
Absolutely.
I know I would like that.
Yeah, I can definitely update this when we like have more information.
It's only a few months away.
It really, it should be starting in April of 2021. Although I have a very strong feeling it's going to get pushed again because I do not think we're going to be anywhere close to resuming normalcy.
I don't know.
Anything close to normalcy until at least October.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say because, I mean, some trials are still happening, so they might just decide to do it.
He's so old, though. Like, it would be so dangerous for him to be in court. The next picture, the next slide, the last slide is him more recently.
Jeez.
Because obviously the first picture of him that I showed you is from 2015.
Yeah.
So like it's been 5 years. He's not in great health mentally or physically. He is actually, give me a second. He is 77.
Wow.
He will obviously have a birthday in April. So he will turn 78 just in time to see if we're having a trial for him. But I'll keep an eye on this.
Yeah.
And I'll see what's going on. We might even have just like little snippets at the beginning of episodes with like what happened in the Durst trial today.
Sure. Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's very, very up in the air. Obviously, there's also more stuff where like Kathy's family like sued him for like damages and sued him for like a bunch of other stuff. And like I can get into that more in like maybe a second episode later if people are interested in it. But this was just like a speed run on Robert Durst, a very, very strange man.
This is definitely the heftiest case.
Oh yeah,
that we've covered.
Hefty.
Yeah,
got
she big.
Lots of juicy information that I could not cover all
of.
I
know. Oh, wow.
Do you have thoughts? Have you ever had a thought?
No thoughts, head empty. Wow, this is crazy. I just want to know more. Like, I have so many questions and I don't even want to start asking them because
watch the documentary. Yeah, I swear.
I think that's what I'm gonna do. I'll see. Honestly, I might go to bed early tonight, but maybe tomorrow night Scott and I can start it.
Let me know. Text me the whole time.
Oh, I will. I absolutely will.
If you Snapchat me clips of Robert Durst being weird, I will renew my vows to you. This is just like pure.
How lovely.
This is just pure love if I get Snapchats of Robert Durst being strange. Would you like to talk about, finally, what we are reading and recommending?
Yes.
Good
okay.
Lord.
So, I am actually going to recommend the book that I checked out from the library today. So, it's very different. It's not a novel.
No, it's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah. So, I am trying a new hobby, which is making stained glass.
I'm very excited about that.
Yeah. So I checked out this book from work and it's very simple. I honestly don't even know if it's still being printed. I will have to check. But it is just a how to start making stained glass. So it's called The Beginner's Guide to Stained and Decorative Glass by Oriel Hicks. That's Oriel Hicks. So very different, not a novel, but something I've been into lately. So I'm going to recommend it anyway.
Good. This is our show.
Yes, exactly.
We can do what we want here.
Yeah, I'm going to see if it's still being published because I'm not sure exactly how old it is.
I have finished From Here to Eternity by Caitlin Doughty. It was wonderful, as all of her content, book form or otherwise, typically is. It is very, very, very good. I loved it. And I talked about this before, but I loved the audiobook because it was read by her.
Yeah.
So there's always something super great about having her read it, especially when it's her.
Yeah.
I am now moving on to a similar but different book. Basically, I got From Here to Eternity on Audible, and so Audible was like, hey, you like death books and books about death positivity, why don't you read The Good Death, An Exploration of Dying in America by Anne Newman. That's A-N-N, and then her last name is Neumann. The short synopsis, basically blurb of it, is: The Good Death presents a fearless examination of how we approach death and how those of us close to dying loved ones live in death's wake. Following the death of her father, journalist and hospice volunteer Anne Newman sets out to examine what it means to die well in the United States. So it's basically piggybacking off of Caitlin's book.
Yeah.
Which I am so fine with. I basically was so satisfied by Caitlin's book, but I still just want more of it. I want more of this kind of content. So I was really glad that Jeff Bezos knows what I want. And if you have Audible, it is included with your membership. So you don't have to use a credit for it. It's just there. You can snag it at any point. It is 8 hours, though. It's longer than Caitlin's book, but even an 8-hour audiobook is not that big a deal.
Still sounds really good.
Yeah, I'm very excited to really get into it.
Yeah.
I know we again speed ran that reading and recommending, but we had such heavy
I know
top half. Let's just get to the end of this.
Yeah.
Elizabeth.
Yes.
Where can the people find us?
We are Briefcase Crimes across all platforms. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube. You can listen to full episodes anywhere that you listen to podcasts, as well as on YouTube. If you'd like to support us monetarily, you can buy us a coffee on ko-fi.com/briefcasecrimes, or you can purchase any of our book recommendations or the books that we mention on the podcast from bookshop.org/shop/briefcasecrimes. They support local bookstores by donating 75% of profits to them, and they support us by giving us 10% of the profits as well through our affiliate link. And the links to that, as well as everything else that I talked about, are in the description and in our bio.
Well said.
I stumbled through that one a little. It's been a long episode.
We are 2 hours in.
Yeah.
Recording, it won't be that long, but editing, it won't be that long, but still.
Yeah. Yeah. I made it. We're good. I'm calling it a win.
We've reached the end of the podcast. If you're still here, thank you.
Thank you
for being with us.
Honestly.
Would you like to wrap this up, Elizabeth?
Yeah. Thank you so much for listening.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.